Hey guys, Calamity here with hopefully a better video than the last one. Today we're going to look at some interesting statistics from, I'm going to guess this is the Asia server. And this is for Spiral Abyss 3.0 on floor 12 only. And if you can see above me, the sample size is from 1,028 players. Now we can see the most used characters here, and as well as the least used characters. I am blocking one character with my face. I don't think anyone's gonna care though. It is Alloy. Alloy was a free quote-unquote 5-star character that was given to us as a collaboration with the Horizon Zero Dawn collab that they did a long time ago, and she is just not a great character, so that 0% usage from her is not surprising at all. But let's talk about the top and maybe some other interesting stats down below. So at the top we have Kazuha, Bennett, Zhongli, and Yelan. Now if you've been playing Genshin for a while, this shouldn't be a surprise to you at all, but maybe you are new and you're curious as to why Kazuha, Bennett, Zhongli, and Yelan are have the highest usage rate in the entire Spiral Abyss. Usually Kazuha and Bennett are used together, but however, Kazuha has just so many teams that he can work with and so many DPS characters he works well with, because he has the ability to swirl with most elements except Dendro, Anemo, and Geo. But when he swirls with his Viridescent Veneer artifact set, he reduces that element's resistance by 40%. So he can swirl with Hydro, Cryo, Electro, and Pyro. He also gives them another bonus to their elemental damage based off his elemental mastery. He also can pull in enemies with his elemental skill, giving him a little bit of CC with a very short cooldown, and very good for the floors with huge groups of enemies or crowded enemies, as long as it works. But he's even the difference between him and Venti is that his burst will still work, unlike Venti's where it just doesn't do anything, because as long as the boss is in the field of his burst, they will take that damage and it still works fine. Now Bennett is up here because he is a fantastic healer, but he is also a fantastic attack buffer. When he uses his ult, any character standing in that circle will get a huge increase to their attack, making him one of the best staple units in the game. And again, he also works in a lot of team comps. Now we have Zhongli here. Now I already did a very long video on why Zhongli is a very good unit, a very good character to have. He has a very, very strong shield, and that prevents you from getting stunned, and a lot of characters love this shield from Zhongli. Now Yelan is up here because I believe she is probably the strongest unit in the entire game. Most people probably build her as a sub DPS, and that is absolutely fine, but if you choose to use her as a main DPS, she is also really strong in that regard as well. Especially if you're a whale and you have her weapon and you got some constellations on her, she just keeps getting better and better and better, and just such a strong character. Now on the second row, we have Xingqiu, Xianling, Raiden Shogun, and surprisingly Kokomi is up here with 50.4%. Maybe that's not surprising to some, but definitely a huge increase to when she was first released, and a lot of people did not like her. But Xingqiu and Xianling we'll briefly talk about. They have been solid characters ever since the game was launched. They are fantastic sub DPSs for many characters, and their bursts basically just work off field, so you could just drop or use their skill, pop the burst, and then move on. Very quick swap playstyle, making them easy fits for just about any team. Now Raiden Shogun has also been a solid character ever since her release. Very strong DPS, but she also has the ability to refill your team's energy when she's using her burst, and that makes her a very strong teammate to have. And she is in one of the strongest and most played teams ever, called the Raiden's National Shogun team. Sorry, the Raiden's International team, which consists of Raiden, Xiangling, Jingqiu, and Bennett. You usually just cycle through all of their bursts before using Raiden's, and you get big damage. And because of her ability to be the best battery in the game, you basically refill your teammates' ults or bursts, and then you just keep repeating the cycle until the enemy dies, basically. Kokomi. So Kokomi has a rerun banner right now. This is her third rerun banner currently running, so that could be a reason why her usage is so high. But however, I also did make a video about her explaining why she's so much better than she was before. But basically, Kokomi fits in a lot of teams right now. She is just a great overall unit and healer, but with the new Dendro element with the bloom effect and maybe some hyper bloom teams out there, she is just a fantastic unit to use for those sort of reaction setups. Next we have Ayaka and Hu Tao. Now Ayaka has almost double the usage rate of Ganyu here, and I believe that is because floor 12 has bosses in the chambers. And Ayaka is just a much better single target in my opinion because of the burst. As long as you actually landed on them and they're not like, you know, moving out of the way, that burst will do a lot of damage, especially if you have some consolations on her. And then Hu Tao, despite not having a rerun banner since last year in November, still has a very high usage rate. She's still one of the best pyro DPSs in the game since forever. Probably the best one if you want to argue that. She's always had a solid team. And below that, we have quite a few characters. We have Child, Shenhe, Yoimiya, Tignari, Yaimiko, Venti, and Ganyu. Ganyu, I'm very surprised, is pretty low in usage. Despite having a rerun banner right now, I thought she would be a little bit higher than this, but like I said earlier, there are bosses on floor 12, and maybe not a lot of people want to use Ganyu for single target. Venti, also understandable with the low usage rate. Again, bosses, but he does do well on the chamber with like a bunch of humanoids on it. I forgot which chamber it was though. Yaimiko has a nice healthy usage here, almost 28%. Again, probably a good Hydro Bloom setup character. She also gets damage based off her elemental mastery. I'm thinking about rebuilding my own Yaimiko to be built around doing reactions like this. Tignari with 31% usage, very strong. And I'm sure a lot of people are using him just because he's a fresh new DPS in a new element. So a lot of people are probably... I'm going to assume his usage rate is higher than it was in the previous Spiral Abyss iteration, just because more people have probably had time to actually build up his artifacts and get him levels and talents and whatnot. Yoimiya, I'm very happy to see a 32% usage rate. I've always been a fan of her. And I used her in my Spiral Abyss video. She is just fantastic for all the bosses in the Spiral Abyss. She'll just destroy them, and she has a lot of great teammates for doing that. Shenhe is a surprise to me. She's only ever had one banner ever, but she still manages to have a very high usage rate. She is popular with a lot of the teams that you're seeing up here, and including the one that Ayaka is in. So it's not a surprise that she's up here too much, but it's just surprising that a lot of people have her despite her only having one banner. And we also have Child up here at 40%. Not a surprise. He is the harbinger of reruns, and he's been rerun multiple times. Great character to have even at C0. Easy to build, and he also got the Polar Star weapon a couple months back that gave him a lot more damage. Now let's talk about the rest of the cast that is on the bottom here. Um, and some of them might be surprising to you, some of them not so much. But let's take a look at the least used characters first. And the one, again, that I am blocking is Alloy. My head is blocking it. I'm sorry about that. But we also have Amber, Lisa, Jinyan at 0.9%, Razor, and then Chongyun, and then Noelle, and Heizo, and Diluc at 0.4%. That is very sad to see. Now let's talk about why these story characters and Alloy are in the bottom or just not used at all. It's not that they're bad characters, it's just that getting constellations for them are difficult. So you're more likely to use a 4-star that's Constellation 6 and has a lot more buffs than these characters, since again, very, very hard to get constellations for Amber or Lisa, but that does not mean that they are terrible characters. In fact, Lisa is probably, I would guess, is probably having a higher usage rate if we had a bigger sample size, because she is pretty good for doing Hyper Bloom teams. In fact, I would like to try one myself, but I would have to definitely build up my Lisa. Jinyan, 9.09%. Again, low usage rate because her shield just, compared to Zhongli, it's just not that great. However, she can be a decent shield support. It's just that most people have other characters for shields. Now we have Razor, who is unfortunately getting replaced by Sinnoh. No, Razor actually has I believe a very popular comp that involves using a C6 Bennett, and you kind of proc overloaded, and it's somewhat decent on bosses, I suppose. I haven't actually seen the team myself or tried it, but again, very low usage rate, and I actually expect that usage rate to fall even lower once Sinnoh is released. Heizo being this low is a surprise to me. I actually thought Heizo was a pretty good 4-star and a very fun character to use because of his unique melee fighting style, despite being a catalyst user. And he actually does really good damage once you get his stacks going. My guess is because he's only, again, been featured on one banner. As soon as we start seeing him more on reruns of other banners, I'm sure that usage rate will probably go up. Then we have Diluc. Again, I'm very surprised is at 0.4. He is by no means a terrible unit. In fact, he's been always solid ever since the launch of this game. I just suppose it's just people have used him so much that they're just kind of bored of using Diluc, and they just kind of want to try other characters, like, again, Tignari with the 31% usage rate. I'm just sure people just want to try different team comps, but Diluc is still a solid character, very much capable of doing the entire Spiral Abyss, floor 12, and still getting all the stars. Kea up here, probably the most used story character. Definitely a good sub DPS because of his burst, and his very easy to build burst, by the way. You can use him as a main DPS, but it does require constellations. I suppose out of the 3 story characters, most people do choose to build Kea because of his really, really high crit rate he can achieve just by having his C1. So you can just go straight up crit damage for him and get some decent numbers when using Kea. Kind of moving on to the second half of the first half, I guess, the left half of this bottom row. Not too surprising to see a lot of these characters have a low usage rate. Again, that doesn't mean they're bad. It's just that, well, the other characters, the more meta characters, perform much better. But you have Ningguang, Yan, Fei here, which are very solid DPS characters. Nothing wrong with them at all. They just get outclassed by other, 5-star characters is all. Also, Sucrose is down here. Poor Sucrose with a 3.7% usage rate. Most people do have Venti or Kazuha because of Kazuha just having a rerun banner recently, and Venti having so many, and in fact is about to get another rerun banner. So a lot of people have moved on from Sucrose, but she is still a very good 4-star CC unit if you need to pull in a bunch of enemies. I'm sure if we were looking at statistics for floor 11, 10, 9, you would actually see that percentage be much higher than 3.7. And then we're moving on to the second row, or the top row here on the right half. We have Traveler and Kali. Kali's almost at 6% and Traveler at 5.2. That is a huge increase for Traveler, I'm sure, and that is because Dendro Traveler is actually pretty solid. And again, we're also not only is Traveler solid as a Dendro support, but it's just the lack of options, right? If you want to try out Dendro or do Dendro reaction-based teams, then you kind of you only have Kali or Traveler as your options for that, because Tignari isn't really a support, or a sub DPS is main DPS. Jean squished in between our two Dendro supports here. She's just a very solid healer. Nothing to note about there. Klee 6.0% usage exactly. She has definitely fallen off the meta ever since her release, when she used to be considered one of the best units in the game. She just doesn't have a lot of good team synergy with a lot of characters, especially the meta ones. Like, you wouldn't use her with Jing Cho, for example. You could do some sort of mono pyro team shenanigans with her, but it's just a pain to build a team and their artifacts centered around one niche like that. Then we have Zhao and Eula here. Again, solid DPS characters. You probably won't see a lot of Zhao, again, because of the bosses, and Zhao isn't really that great for single target DPS. Now, Keqing with the 8.5%, I am definitely sure, without seeing like any previous iterations of these statistics, that her pick rate jumped up. Like, if I had to guess where her pick rate was before this update, she's probably down there next to maybe even Diluc, or maybe Ningguang Yanfei pick rate, but she definitely moved up because of the Dendro reactions giving Electro characters life here. She is definitely getting a lot of increased damage thanks to Aggravate and Hyper Bloom, and there are a lot of good teams centered around using that sort of those reactions, and that has made Keqing act like a really solid character now. I know all the Keqing mains just heard that and like, she's always been solid, what do you mean? But she's just, okay, she's even better now, and I expect that pick rate to go up even more as more people build her, because you do have to get more elemental mastery if you want the most out of the Aggravate and the Hyper Bloom. But you can just use just Aggravate with Keqing if you want, and still get pretty good results, since she does a lot of electro damage. And once you pop an Aggravate on a boss or an enemy, pop her burst, and you're just going to see big numbers across the screen. Kujo Sara at 9.1%. I'm sure this is a much higher usage rate for the same reason why Keqing is up here. Just because of the nice synergy with Electro and Dendro made her a much more valuable support. And not to mention, she gives you a lot of crit damage on her C6 and just damage overall as a nice buff support character. Dione here at almost 10% or 9.5% usage rate. Very not surprising at all to see her here. She's just a nice healer and a nice shield character. If you don't have Zhongli, she's like a budget shielder. Yunjin up here because a lot of the popular DPS characters such as Yoimiya and Yelan do normal attack damage, and Yunjin basically just buffs that for you for free. Rosaria up here because she is basically free crit rate on a lot of characters that if you're just lacking crit rate on them, she just helps boost that by a decent amount, up to 15%. Arataki Ito has a lot of usage that I'm actually surprised. I would have put him lower in my guess, just because he only has one specific team comp. But seeing as how there's not a lot of shields, elemental shields that is, for him to deal with, that's probably why his usage rate is higher. If there is an iteration of the Abyss where there's a lot of like mages or like the cube stuff, then you're probably not going to see him here that much. Albedo with 14% is pretty surprising, but that is also probably because he is used with Hu Tao for the Walnut team comp. Ayato also being up here, again, huge surprise to me because he's just a character I just really haven't heard about. Maybe he's more popular in the Asia server. He has only had one banner a while back. He is a solid character, however, you know, and again, he's also a good character to use with characters like Yunjin for more normal attack damage increase. And then we have Fish and Mona here, which is kind of funny considering they're best friends in the story. But yeah, Fish just getting more value. Again, Dendro stuff, Electro support here, good battery. Now that you see a lot of Electro units being used here. Mona, also solid support. Used her, a lot of people use her with the Morgana comp. And she could also be pretty decent for Bloom stuff, I suppose. But yeah, to wrap things up, this is the these are the most used characters in a sample size of 1,028 players that completed the Spiral Abyss in 3.0. This is just for floor 12. What do you guys think of the stats of the characters used here? Anything surprising to you? Anything not so surprising to you? Let me know in the comments down below, and if you guys want to see more types of these videos, also let me know. But thank you for watching. That's gonna wrap it up here, and I'll see you guys in the next video.